Congress's immigration hawks and his staunchest supporters, including staunch supporters of the wall, among them Florida Congressman, House Freedom Caucus member Matt Gaetz. I heard you laugh a little bit. Did I somehow mischaracterize you there?
No, not at all. Look, we believe in border security, and it was great to be with the president to go over what we were fighting about with the Democrats and who we're fighting for. You've heard a common Democrat refrain criticism that not all of the funds that had been given to the administration have been spent yet. Well, one of the reasons that's the case is because Senate Democrats continue to put more and more restrictions on the use of those funds.
You were with the president. Earlier in the week, he seemed willing to insert adjective, cave, compromise, whatever it was, but a clean CR was coming. And somehow he then reversed course. Are you confident now he's not going to reverse course again, that he is willing to endure the political hardships here to get that $5 billion?
Absolutely.
What did he tell you at the lunch that convinces you of that?
He was resolute. He was resolute that...
Give me quotes. What did he say?
Well, I'm not going to give you a readout of the exact words from the president, but I'll tell you that his attitude was one of maintaining a commitment to border security. And frankly, when you look at the drugs...
That's kind of like a platitude, though,
no,
Congressman. I mean, give me something he just said.
Platitude, we're shut down. Look, we've shut down elements of the government because he's this serious
about it. Did he say, I promise you, I am not going to sign a CR that doesn't have $5 billion for the wall?
He said he would not sign a bad deal. He deeply regrets having signed, I think, a very bad spending cap deal before, and I think that he's informed by that regret as he's making these decisions now, and he is not going to give in without funding for border security.
Funding for border security is different than funding for the wall.
Border security has to include a physical barrier.
But is that the key here, this semantic between Chuck Schumer saying you have to give up the wall, but border security is okay?
No. We have to have a physical barrier. One of the challenges is that Democrats continue to try to constrain the ways that the administration could execute that physical barrier with the use of fencing, walling, drones, other forms of technology that in pilot programs are working to seize cartel members and others who are trying to bring special interest aliens into the country.
I don't need to tell you that the power in the House shifts on January 3rd. One of the outgoing Republican members, Congressman Costello, had this tweet. If and when the government shuts down, there's no pressure on DEMS. Then DEMS control the House on January 3rd. Then DEMS have more leverage. The notion that a shutdown creates more pressure on DEMS is toddler logic. Why is he wrong?
He's wrong because as we roll deeper into the shutdown, I think that the Democrats will experience more pain than the Republicans. Look, you know,
what pain have Democrats already experienced?
You had Anthony Brown on this show just a few minutes ago.
He didn't seem in pain.
His constituents in Maryland will be if this government shutdown lasts a lot longer. You know, the Republicans largely represent districts where military and veteran issues drive the pain of a shutdown. Okay. Those things are funded, and so I think that. Look, leverage is all about the amount of pain you're willing to inflict and the amount of pain you're willing to withstand. And my assessment from being with the president yesterday is he is in this for the long haul, and he is not going to sign a bad deal that does not include border security with a physical barrier.
All right, so follow that logic out. It seems the number the president wants, you all want, is $5 billion. General consensus is that builds about 215 miles of the wall. If this is so important, if this is such a threat to national security, the government shut down, you guys think you have the leverage, why not hold out for $25 billion?
Well, look, we'll take all the wall funding.
I know you'll take it, but why not demand it?
Well, look, actually, when we were with the president yesterday, he was discussing different design concepts and different alternatives that would lower the cost of the wall. And so I don't think that you necessarily need $25 billion. The president did not seem to think yesterday that all $25 billion would be necessary to get the job done.
You're going to need more than $5 billion.
Yeah, sure. Well, no, we're not going to stop fighting.
But why not hold out for more than $5 billion?
Well, look, I am trying to get as much as we can possibly get. We do have to get Senate Democrats to vote for it, which is why we're making the argument about the impact to families, the impact on drugs coming across our border, and the impact on wages.
But if this is an issue of principle and of national security, as you're outlining, and the government is shut down and you think you have more leverage, why not try to get it all right now?
Well, look, we're going to try to get as much as we can. I mean, my assessment is that $5 billion is the right number. On Fox News Sunday, Mick Mulvaney said that we have made an offer to the Senate Democrats that is something less than $5 billion.
They're okay with that?
Well, look, I want all $5 billion, but you have to compromise.
This brings up an important point. Mick Mulvaney tossed out a number, as you pointed out, less than $5 billion. House Freedom Caucus okay with that? Would you guys go along?
I think that
less than $5 billion?
It depends on how that money is restricted.
Okay.
If that money has max flexibility for the administration to strategically secure our border, I think that there probably is a number less that doesn't start with a 5 that we could be okay with, but we've got to see Senate Democrats come up from 1.3. 1.3 is not the answer. 1.6 is not the answer. I think that Senate Democrats need to come to a crooked number, two or higher, and then I think that would be good faith negotiation to get us in a better posture going into 2019.
All right. Congressman, good to see you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
While Congress struggles to secure the $5 billion for Trump's border wall, one American is taking matters into his own hands. Air Force veteran and Purple Heart recipient Brian Colfage started a GoFundMe campaign earlier this week to raise $1 billion for Trump's wall. In just 5 days, it's raised over $13 million due to donations from Americans nationwide. Joining me now, Blaise Ingoglia. He is the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, and Gina Loudon, political analyst and member of President Trump's Media Advisory Board. Good to see you both. Oh, also Gina's author of this great book, Mad Politics. Wanted to get that in there, Gina. Blaise, let me go to you first. Absolutely. One of the reasons President Trump was elected clearly was the wall. It ain't for nothing that he said it at virtually every campaign stop he was at. Democrats know this. That's why they don't want to give this piddling amount, $5 billion for the wall. But that's Americans you still see. I mean, this is not just symbolic, this guy who has a GoFundMe account. I mean, there are millions and millions of Americans who voted for President Trump because of the wall.
Yeah, it's not just symbolic. What the Democrats really need to understand that it was a mandate. People of this nation want to secure the borders because this is what happens. You get crime, you get drugs crossing the border. And look, when you put this whole thing into perspective, you're talking about $5 billion out of a $4 trillion budget. It's not that much money. So the Democrats are going to underestimate this issue once again at their own peril like they did in 2016.
I think, Gina, they're also underestimating the intelligence of the American public to figure out what's going on. They all come out with these claims of compassion. You know, we are so compassionate for the children, we're for DACA, for the Dreamers, et cetera, et cetera. What about compassion for the angel moms? What about compassion for all the people who've died from drug overdoses as a result of the extraordinary amount of heroin coming across the border and other drugs that lead to the deaths of people? I mean, where's the compassion there?
Right. And again, this is about action more than words. They can talk about compassion all day long, David, but they're the ones who voted against ending sanctuary cities. They're the ones that voted, against, what am I trying to say? The Kate's Law. That's the one. I couldn't think of the name. Kate's Law. Bless her heart. As moms are approaching Christmas time right now, they're thinking about these angel moms who are forever without their children. And they're wondering, this party that talks all the time about compassion, where have their votes been as crime and drugs and murder pour across our southern border?
So, Blaise, I'm thinking that Schumer and Pelosi believe if they are able to pin a government shutdown on the president, that's going to be enough to destroy, at least temporarily, his hopes for 2020 and perhaps get them more votes in the House and the Senate. I think they may be miscalculated. The last 2013, by the way, we had a shutdown that was blamed on the Republicans, and the Republicans picked up the Senate in 2014. So it doesn't always work the way Schumer and Pelosi say it's going to work.
Mark my words, if there is a government shutdown over securing the border, the Trump rallies in 2020 are going to be bigger than anybody has ever seen. And I want to piggyback on these votes. I know that we're headed towards a government shutdown right now. What I would like to see happen in the Senate right now is take up the House bill with the $5 billion in it. Let them all vote on it right now so we can see and have a record of people who truly stand for securing our borders. And let's see who the people are who are voting against that. And if there are any Republicans who are voting against that, well, let's just hand them switch cards and tell them to switch to Democrat right now, because they're supposed to be campaigning on these issues for years, for decades, some of them. And when it comes time to take the vote, if they vote no, they just need to go away.
Gina, we are at midnight going to be in a government shutdown. It may only last a couple of days, but what's your best guess? How long do you think this goes on?
I think it'll be short because this president is so smart, so measured, and so strategic. He always knows how to use his leverage, and this is no exception to that rule. But I think we have to remember that the Schumer shutdown is not going to reflect on this president, no matter what. This is going to fall right on the hands of the Democrats. And let's remember, too, they're trying to make this big deal out of the shutdown, David, but every single president since Ford has had a shutdown, and Obama's lasted 16 days, I think. Carter's lasted 17 days, if I'm correct. These things happen. So for people to predict 2020 elections out of this, other than them seeing the Democrats for what they really are, I just don't see this falling on the president at all.
$20 off with the code BECKCHRISTMAS.
Last night I was watching Levin TV on Blaze TV, and Mark was talking about this on the air a bit. The idea that the president is pulling out of Syria, and everybody found out over Twitter at the Pentagon. Just not the way you want to run a country or a war, and it's wrong. This is not going to lead to anything good. I have David French on. We wanted to talk a little bit about being deplatformed and social media and what it says about us, et cetera, et cetera. But he's a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and so I wanted to get his opinion because he has written a lot about ISIS over the years as well. His opinion on us pulling out of Syria and what this means. Welcome to the program, David.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So your thoughts on what happened yesterday?
It's stunning, and it's a terrible mistake. It's a very dangerous mistake. It's stunning in part because just days ago, the administration had reaffirmed its commitment to our Kurdish allies and to completing the mission of destroying ISIS. And people have to understand, when you talk about ISIS, there's the caliphate. You know, their attempt to create a nation state that has been the caliphate has been largely wiped out. But ISIS, the terrorist organization, still exists. And to put this into perspective, in 2011, when Obama wrongly pulled out of Iraq, this is something that conservatives were deeply concerned about when he did it. And when he wrongly left Iraq, there were only about 700 members of al-Qaeda in Iraq left in that country, only about 700. The best estimate of the remaining strength of ISIS in Iraq and Syria is between 20 and 30,000. And so to say that it's done, that the job is done, is just not factually correct. It is wrong.
We knew this in World War II. I mean, when the regime collapsed in Germany, we didn't stop. We went werewolf hunting. We went looking for those that were called werewolves, self-described werewolves, that were the Nazi believers that went back into the communities and were not going to let this thing die. We knew we had to kill them and stop them.
Well, you know, this would be about like declaring the end of the Afghan war right after the Taliban fell, even though we knew that al-Qaeda was still out there. The capital cities of the caliphate have fallen, and Trump deserves a lot of credit for continuing that military campaign and stepping up that military campaign that began under Obama. But now to pull out before that job is done, and then to make it worse, there are three entities most likely to gain, enemies of the U.S. that are most likely to gain from this: ISIS, of course, Russia, and Iran. This is something that we're going to strengthen our enemies. We're going to betray our allies. And to what purpose? This had been one of the most successful American military interventions since 9/11. I mean, we had with very light casualties by comparison to other American military interventions, toppled the heart of the caliphate, empowered Kurdish allies, held the line against Russia and Iran, and put ISIS in headlong retreat. And before it's all done, you just leave, and you do it by shocking your own generals. That doesn't make sense.
Why did it happen?
Well, we have to crawl into the mind of Donald Trump. I mean, I think part of, from the beginning, he has expressed deep skepticism about America's military actions involvement overseas. He has been talked out of on multiple occasions, headlong and precipitous retreats in Afghanistan, in Syria. You just get the feeling that this is what he wants to do, and that he's been repeatedly talked out of it by the people around him. But
so
he's just going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Let's talk about something that I think, David, conservatives and all Americans should be very concerned about right now, but I'm going to really be focusing on it in 2019, and that is the silencing of voices and social media. You wrote an article, "Social Media Idealism Collides with Human Nature." I think that headline says it all. Explain that.
Yeah, so essentially what I'm talking about there is the frustration that the social media companies are now feeling with how their platforms are used, and they're clumsy and sometimes censorious attempts to bring their platforms in alignment with their vision. And so what they imagined was, they're going to create these platforms that are going to bring the world together, and not just bring the world together, and transmit and communicate their values. That, you had these Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, executives, almost all of them uniformly progressive, who believe that these platforms would accomplish progressive things in the world. But it turns out when you create a platform, when you create a true marketplace of ideas, you also empower a lot of voices you don't like, and a lot of voices you disagree with. And particularly on Facebook, it's very interesting. If you look at the top publishers on Facebook in the political context, time and again, it's conservatives. Mm-hmm. Time and again, it's Republicans. Mm-hmm. And that's not what Zuckerberg built Facebook for.
And they have and they've done everything they can to hurt those platforms and to hurt the traffic, trying to, for me, I have 3.2 million Facebook likes and fans and followers. Right. And they want me to pay to be able to reach the people who said, I want the stuff from him. They're doing everything they can to limit the voice. Yeah.
And the problem is they want two things. They want it all, and they can't have it all. So what they want is to reach every person in the world, and then they also want to spread and inculcate a particular set of values. Well, if you make your platform a value transmission device, you're going to limit its reach. And so they keep on trying to square that circle. They keep trying to say, well, we want everybody on there, but we really, truly only want a certain kind of expression on there. You can't have both, but they flail around often trying to have both, or at least trying their best to limit the spread of ideas that they dislike. And this is a real problem. It creates almost an unbearable amount of tension, because on the one hand, you have conservatives saying, hey, treat us equally. Just treat us, we don't need special treatment. Just treat us equally with other perspectives. And then you have progressives who happen to be, in their peer group, essentially, saying, what are you doing? You're all progressives. You want the progressive values spread.
I think you also have a third group of people that are both sides that look at these really hideous things from anti-Semites or whatever,
right.
And say you got to get rid of them. But the correct answer is I can't get rid of anybody. It's a platform. I can't get rid of anybody.
Well, yeah, I think, and I've been long arguing this, that the correct way to look at this is to not try to reinvent the wheel, but take America's 200-plus years of experience with the First Amendment and apply it to these social media companies, not by force of law. And I don't want Congress saying you have to apply First Amendment principles. But I'd say Twitter and Facebook voluntarily applying First Amendment principles, and core to the First Amendment jurisprudence is the idea of viewpoint neutrality. In other words, if we're a platform, whatever rules we put in place, they're going to be viewpoint neutral rules. We're not going to privilege a point of view and suppress another point of view. We're going to create a marketplace of ideas, and I think that that's the way through this wilderness. But because they have not done that, and because they have put their thumb on the scales, sometimes to get rid of really, truly bad people, no question, but because they have put their thumb on the scales, they're opening themselves to endless charges of double standards.
Yeah. Because
those double standards are very, very real.
And I'm trying to decide Facebook, Google, all social media and these big platforms, YouTube. Are they creating a hostile civilization? Are they just empowering that hostile position, or are they just revealing who we really are?
I think it's revealing and empowering. So I don't think people are people are people. But what Facebook has been able to do, what YouTube has been able to do, is essentially take all of the flaws of human beings, and often all the virtues of human beings as well, but all of the flaws of human beings, and put them right in our face all the time. So that if, let's say you have neighbors who live 5 doors down who have bad ideas about politics, you might not ever encounter them pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter. But now everybody's bad ideas, and by bad ideas, the ones you don't like, are thrown in your face constantly all the time on these platforms. And I think what it does is it sort of takes our natural emotional reaction to being exposed to things we don't like, makes it relentless, and then sort of over time turns it up to 11. And it's the only way to really escape it is to turn off social media entirely. But then you get that sort of nagging feeling that, what am I missing? Am I missing these developments with my grandkids? Am I missing these developments with my friends on the West Coast? So you turn it back on for the friendships, and then there it is again, all of the things that you dislike. And I think it just